Good evening and a very warm welcome to Television Tonga News package for tonight. Making headlines, preparations for Taupo High School's Golden Jubilee in full swing. His Majesty King Taupo VI highlights the importance of addressing his people's needs during presenting of the Parliament's response to His Majesty's official opening of Parliament, and electricity cost will be dropped by 30 seniti per kilowatt if the government approved to work together with the Clean Energy Solution of America. These are more stories together with the latest in sports and the weather forecast later on in this bulletin. I'm Fatai Whainga with your news for tonight. His Majesty King Taupo VI will officiate as the guest of honour at Taupo High School's Golden Jubilee on Saturday. He will also officiate at the Centenary Church in Sayone to unveil the plaque to mark the special occasion. The ex-students, together with the students of the Nuku campus yesterday, present traditional items to His Majesty at the Royal Residence of Liukava. The celebration of the Golden Jubilee will start tomorrow with the ex-students parade led by the patron of the ex-students, Her Royal Highness Princess Pilolevu Tuita. A book based on the Taupo Tertiary Institute will also be presented during the event. Taupo High School was first started in 1963 inside the Centenary Church before the establishment of its first campus in 1965. 3 pioneers of the school have already arrived in Nuku'alofa to take part in the celebration, namely Devita Maliu, Pita Niuvao, and Devita Safa. His Majesty King Taupo VI wishes that parliamentarians focus on his people's benefits, especially those who are trying to make a living. That's according to Ewa's Noble Representative Lord Nuku and the People's Representative of Tongatapu No. 9, Falisi Tupou, during yesterday's celebrations in response to the Speaker and members of the House after presenting the Legislative Assembly's response to His Majesty's address from the throne when he officially opened Parliament's ordinary session for 2013 last week. Kalolaina Tonglaba reports.
Tongatapu 9 Representative Falis Tupou in his report to the House says the work is complete and it pleases His Majesty. He says it was clear from His Majesty's address that he was envisage a parliament that will help his people. Tongatapu 9 Representative also emphasized His Majesty highlights the high tax applied to the people, leaving them no choice, especially if they're running a business. He also explains His Majesty's interest to boost the education sector in Tonga, extracting a clear example from Thailand. Thailand's tuition fees for 3 years is equivalent to 1-year tuition fees in Australia. His Majesty also highlighted the importance of reducing school fees in Tonga, prioritizing his people's need. The Speaker of the House thanked the representatives for completing this important task. For Television Tonga News, I'm Kalolaine Tonglava.
The Ministry of Public Enterprises this morning receives Tonga Power's dividend for the 2012-2013 financial years. This totaled at more than 500,000 pa'anga. Sinlatu reports.
The chairman of Tonga Power Board, Carl Santh, presenting Tonga Power Limited dividend to Honourable Fe'au Vakata. The minister praised the company's hard work, saying they are working together to cut electricity costs and heavy reliance on diesel for distributing electricity to homes. The amount presented this morning is the remaining money from the government's subsidy to electricity, which has been deducted from their total dividend to help reduce electricity bills since the increase in the cost of electricity. This is one of the best companies that has performed outstandingly. Chief Executive Officer of Tonga Power explains more on the company's dividend.
Our total amount was 860,000 paenga, of which today we paid 524,000, which is the remaining amount. So in total we've actually paid government just on 1.3 million paenga in tax and in dividends for the year.
The chairman of the board says they've put forward projects to the government, hoping it will reduce electricity costs. We are working together with the minister and his CEO, Siasi Sovaleni, to push for the implementation of renewable energy from the sun and wind. We've also submitted project proposals since February this year, estimated to the tune of 50 to 60 million pa'anga. If the government approves these projects, electricity costs will decrease by 20 cents per kilowatt.
The members of the Legislative Assembly have approved a 400,000 paanga request, or half of the surplus money from the 1 million paanga allocated by government to market local products to overseas markets. This is after the representative of Tongatapu No. 4 to Parliament, Isleli Polo, submit the request to the House, saying this request was submitted by the Tokakawa crush growers owned by Leseli Namoa. It is estimated that the surplus amount of that fund is to the tune of 800 to 900,000 paanga. The submission was made when the House deliberated agendas including the Estimate Budget 2013-2014. The Honourable Prime Minister Lord Divano says work will be carried out to this request, despite the final decision will be made by the Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning Lisete Akolo. But it is important that they work together, the Prime Minister says, to address the people's needs. Honourable Akolo told the House this request coincides with the reason why this money was put aside. Tokakawa's request is based on needs to hire a temporary house for the squash product to be processed before exported to the markets and other needs. The MPs then decided to accept this request from the Tokakawa group. The matter is now handed over to the Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning. The Pacific Trade Ministers, Tonga included, are concerned over the strict policies and requirements endorsed by the European Commission EC on Pacific Islands trade, especially on the sector of fisheries. This is according to the chairman of the Pacific Trade Ministers Forum, who's also Tonga's Minister of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, Dr. William Latu, when speaking to Television Tonga News this morning. Kalalaine Tonglawa with more on that story.
There are many areas that the European Commission are assisting Tonga on, including health and other development projects. However, the requirements they need from Pacific Islands, including Tonga, to achieve are based on very strict policies which affect the trade between the Pacific Islands and the European Commission. The Honourable Minister of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, Dr. William Latu, who's the chairman of the Pacific Trade Ministers Forum, says the trade ministers in the region are concerned over the dissatisfaction level of agreement of the Pacific with the European Union. Often at times we join international agencies similar to the ACP. The European Commission are then set to carry out assistance for developing countries, including Pacific Island countries, including Tonga. At the same time, they're giving out strict requirements for the Pacific to follow in terms of trading in the fisheries sector. These requirements include quarantine policies, quality of the fish, processing method and other requirements. We feel that these are very strict policies. Dr. Latu added there are many benefits for Tonga and its neighbouring countries if they reach the agreement with the Commission. It's been 10 years since we started negotiations over the Economic Pacific Partnership with the European Commission, and it has not reached any desired level or satisfactory stage. If we are granted such an agreement with the European Commission, then it will bring many benefits for the Pacific. These benefits include assistance provided to establish various infrastructure and donation of equipment to each country in order to boost trade within the region. Dr. Latu says there's a need to draw an agreement with the European Commission to ease these policies in order to enable trade. This is because of the poor situation of the Pacific Islands as they are small and still developing.
The electricity cost to the customers can be dropped by 30 seniti per kilowatt if the Tongan government approved to work together with the American electricity supplier Clean Energy Solution. Discussions with the American company was held when the Honourable Minister visits the US together with officers from the Tonga Power Limited seeking alternatives to help reduce electricity costs and heavy reliance on fuel. This is according to Honourable Fe'a Vakata in an interview with Radio and Television Tonga on development works towards renewable energy. This company's works are based on plastic, paper and wood timber. If Tonga approve of this company, its officials will then visit Tonga next year. The current electricity cost is more than 80 cents per kilowatt, but if this company introduced this new initiative, it will help reduce electricity costs. This is part of the government's initiative to reduce reliance on fuel by 50% in 2020. Tonga's Solicitor General Aminasi Gefu told radio and television Tonga News this morning that Tonga's law states a claim can be made by a current wife and children of a deceased, but not from an ex-wife. Kalaini Tonglava reports.
This comes after the ex-wife of the New Zealand police, Kalifungavaka, that died in Tonga, told New Zealand TV3 she has been struggling to look after her 5 children with the deceased. Kelly Letalo Rahe says she has not received any apology from the Tongan government since the death of her ex-husband. But Television Tonga News understands that the Honourable Prime Minister has already conveyed the government's great remorse and condolences to the current wife and the Fungavaka's family when Fungavaka's body was still in the kingdom on August 24th. In the meantime, the current wife, Audra Fungavaka, neither relatives or the deceased have a say on this matter. However, information from the Honourable Minister of Police says they have received information from the legal counsel, Kahua Whiaki. The Samoan ex-wife will claim about $100,000 in 2 months' time for her ex-husband's death. For Television Tonga News, I'm Kalolaine Tonglava.
It is important for those responding in times of disaster, whether if it is natural or man-made, to know what needs to be done at first when reaching the scene dealing with people that has been injured. They need to know the right skills on first aid and the right treatment given to a particular person that needs help. A first aid training has been held thanks to the Pacific Partnership 2013. Taking part in this program were officers from the Ministry of Health, Police and Fire Services, security officers at the Whamotu International Airports, and others. This program is under Tonga and U.S. Defense Forces partnership, as Warrant Officer Class 2 Tony Lang of the U.S. Defense Force explains.
And what we're doing is covering through in a disaster response. That may be something like a cyclone that's going through the island, where the police may be the first people on the ground after the cyclone's gone through. It could be something like an eruption, tsunami, or even something that's man-made like a bus crash or an aircraft crash, so that they know how to do first aid at the initial response.
He also emphasized the importance to better the knowledge of related stakeholders on the right treatment given to those that need first aid.
I think first aid for an island nation is quite important, that you are self-sufficient, that you're able to look after your own, and that the more first aid you have, the better care you can give to the person that requires it.
The Pacific Partnership Program ends this Friday. An action and a strategic plan has been drafted to control invasive species in the kingdom, such as insects and new plants. This is according to the project manager of invasive alien species, Jeff Pass, in Tonga. He says more than 100 of these species are already in Tonga, affecting the environment. Sinlanto reports.
Related stakeholders coming together to discuss what can be done to control the newly introduced invasive species in Tonga. Project manager Vilami Hakamoto says the invasive species cause damages in the land. There are more than 190 invasive species on land, yet we do not know how many species of this kind at sea. But this plan will help control its impact on the environment both at sea and on land. They hope that this plan enable them to record number of invasive species at sea. This plan will enlighten us on what needs to be done to protect and control these species that impacts the biodiversity. Tonga's economy is based on fisheries and agriculture, but can be affected by these species if cannot be controlled. These species are introduced to Tonga through our borders. It's expected that the action plan will be completed in September this year. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sin Latu.
That's the local news. Sports is up next. In sports, a superb forwards effort from the Brumbies handed the British and Irish Lions their first defeat on tour by 14-12 in Canberra. The Australia side controlled the breakdown in set pieces until 60 minutes when the cavalry arrived off the Lions' bench attempting to narrow the gap on the scoreboard. With a severe lack of time together amongst the Lions' backline and Stuart Hawke starting only his second game at fly half, the lack of cohesion many feared before kickoff was a crippling blow to the Lions' early success. Instead, the Brumbies struck first, confusing in the defence between Wade and Hogg, gave Devita Kuridrani too much space and he brushed off Wade to score. The scenes of celebration in the final spoke volumes of how much victory meant to the Brumbies and the importance of these matches. Having suffered their first defeat, the Lions must now lick their wounds ahead of facing Australia in Brisbane on Saturday. Springboks wing Brian Habana believes that Saturday's clash with Samoa will present an even tougher challenge than their hard-fought clash at the 2011 World Cup. Habana, who scored the only try for South Africa in their 13-5 victory in a bruising encounter in North Harbour, believes the Islanders have made significant strides forward in the last 2 years. Many Neutrals fans felt that Samoa were unlucky to lose that day, and judging by their wins over Italy and Scotland this month, the Springboks will have to be on top of their game to come out on top. Habana said de Villiers' leadership would be sorely missed if he was not cleared to play this week, but he was confident that the senior members of the team would make the step up to fill the void. Habana also gave credit to coach Heineck Meyer for the way he put faith in the senior members of the team, which he believed had helped grow the leadership's cause. New Zealand have been knocked out of rugby's Junior World Championship in France, beaten 33-21 by England in the semi-finals. It will be the first time the New Zealand under-20s haven't made the finals since the competition began in 2008. New Zealand has won the championship 4 times, but were beaten by South Africa in last year's final in Cape Town. England held a 28 half-time lead, but New Zealand battled back after the break to narrow the gap to 22-21 with 8 minutes remaining. However, a late converted try to Brub Luke Cowan-Diggy and a Henry Slade penalty secured the win for England. Wales secured the other final spot with an 18-17 win over South Africa. The women's Black Sticks overcame a sluggish first half effort to beat Japan 3-1 in a spot in the semi-finals at the World League Hockey Tournament in Rotterdam. Japan were a difficult opponent and New Zealand found themselves trailing 1-0 at halftime in a do-or-die crossover match. Their persistence paid off and the goals came in the second half from Crystal Ferguson, Anita Pant and Jarlath Harrison. The win also means New Zealand have qualified for the World League final tournament in the summer in Argentina, and a top 3 place in Rotterdam will get them to the 2014 World Cup. And that's sports news. And looking at today's latest weather forecast. Situation, a weak trough approaching Dontapuin Ewa from the west. Meanwhile, an east to northeast wind flow prevails over Tonga. Forecast to midnight tomorrow for Tonga, light to moderate east to northeast winds, turning light to moderate north to northwest winds tonight, and mainly fun apart from brief showers. Some showers developing tomorrow afternoon about Dontapuin Ewa, and the temperature forecast for Nuku'alofa, minimum of 21 degrees Celsius for tonight. The Marine Weather Bulletin, east to northeast winds 10 to 20 knots, turning north to northwest winds 10 to 20 knots later tonight, and moderate seas. Low tide will be at 9:35 tonight. And that's the latest weather forecast, but before we part, here's a final look at today's top stories. Preparations for Toowoomba High School's Golden Jubilee in full swing. His Majesty King Toowoomba VI highlights the importance of addressing his people's needs during presenting of the Parliament's response to His Majesty's official opening of Parliament. And electricity costs will be dropped by 30 centi per kilowatt if the government approved to work together with the Clean Energy Solution of America. And that ends Television Tonga's news bulletin for tonight. For more on these stories, you can call us on 23556 or check out our website at www.tonga-broadcasting.net or join us on our Facebook page, Radio Television Tonga. Thanks for watching. Do join us again same time tomorrow evening. I'm Fatai Whaingaa. Good evening.